Hi y'all, it's Macy Mouse, and today I wanted to tell y'all one of my favorite stories. This is my labor and delivery story. I have one little disclaimer. If you are pregnant right now or thinking about having a baby and are a really nervous kind of person, I want you to think about not watching this. Just because I don't want anyone to think this is like fear-mongering or anything, and I don't want to scare anybody with my experience. Most people don't deliver the way that I did. I delivered completely natural, no pain medicine, no induction, no medicine of any kind, no Tylenol, Demerol, nothing, no heavy drugs, nothing, absolutely nothing. I had nothing, and it took me about 15 hours of labor, which is actually really fast for a first-time mother to deliver her baby. And so in that respect, I did get lucky. But I just want to put that in there because I know that if I was in the pregnant state of mind where you're really nervous, I don't know if I'd want to watch this, because I'm going to be as honest as possible with everything that I'm going to say about how everything went down and how everything felt and everything like that. So I just don't want anyone to get too upset or nervous. I don't want any scared mommies for no reason. And my baby girl is playing behind me, so if you hear whining, she's actually not whining, she's just playing. Yeah. Okay, so I woke up the day before my daughter was born, and I got ready because I had a doctor's appointment that day. And I'm a makeup girl, I wear a lot of makeup, so I did all my makeup, I straightened my hair, got dressed, went to my appointment, and on the way up there I started having some abdominal pains that kind of went in and out like how contractions are described. I didn't have any Braxton Hicks, so I had no labor pains or an idea of a labor pain or anything like that. So this was definitely new for me, and I was already 40 weeks in 2 days, so I was over my due date, which I knew I would be, and I was super ready to have the baby. So when I started having those pains, I really didn't even get excited. I thought it was just still more pre-labor pregnancy. I had a lot of back pain with my pregnancy, and so I thought that it was something related to that. I got to my doctor's appointment. It was about a 30-minute drive, and I really couldn't move. I felt like I was paralyzed. Like my back hurt so much, and my front abdomen hurt so badly that I was like frozen with fear. Like I was with my mother, and I was like, "Mom, I cannot walk. Like I really feel like I can't walk." And eventually I was able to kind of get my stamina up, and I went in there. And then as I was talking to the triage nurses, or just the regular nurses, the pains went away, so I didn't really bring it up until I actually talked to my doctor. And I told her what I was feeling, and she said that it was probably pre-contractions, but it was nothing that would get me inducted into labor and delivery yet. So, sweet girl. So, anyway, I get there, and I'm only dilated to a 3, or almost a 3, as she said. And I was actually really excited because I was dilated at a 1 for about a month. I had lost my mucus plug a month before, and I just didn't feel like there were any signs of labor coming, so I was really devastated. And so when I found out that I was 3 centimeters, I was really excited. And I was 75% effaced, which means a lot more than the centimeters dilated. And now that I had the baby, I realized that really centimeter checks, dilations don't mean anything, and they don't matter, because you can go from 0 to 10 in an hour, really. Some women have done that before. It's very unlikely, but it is possible. So really, dilation checks don't mean anything. They're just for your peace of mind, so you do not need them. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Say that you're not interested. There's really no reason to have it done anyway. And I went home, or as I was leaving the hospital to go home, my abdominal pains got worse, and I really like froze. I felt like I couldn't even walk to the car. I was just like in so much pain already. And I went to the grocery store afterwards, and I was like falling against the little freezer sections and falling against the displays and stuff. I was like, I cannot move. I really am in pain. Like, this hurts. And so that's when I was starting to think like maybe something is happening, because I've been whining all day about the baby not coming, and I was really wanting the baby to come already. And so I was getting excited. I didn't really think that anything was going to happen though. Still, it was weird. I just felt like, I was like, no, this isn't what it is. I don't know. It's just a part of pregnancy pains probably. I really thought that she wasn't going to come for another week. And I went home, And by the time I got home from the about like 30-minute drive, the labor definitely started. I was having contractions. I could feel them. They hurt. They were coming, and very quickly they start coming every 3 minutes. And really, you're supposed to go to the hospital between 5 and 3 minutes apart, and mine were already 3 minutes apart, and I was 35 minutes away from my hospital. And of course, I had never had a baby before, so I didn't know how quickly I would go into labor. I didn't know how quickly the baby would come once I went into labor. My water had not broken, and in my head, when labor starts is when your water breaks. So I thought that labor wasn't really starting until my water broke. And so I tried to just hold off, but my husband was still at work, and around 8 p.m. he came home because I was frantically calling him. I was like, I really do think something's up. This has to be something. I want to go in. He came home, got me. We left, head up there. He drove super fast and Supermaned me up there. And once we got there, they did a soft entry into the hospital because I was only 3 centimeters dilated still. I was so upset, but I was like 80% effaced now, which was good. So that's where the progression was. And my contractions were steady. That is why they decided to give me a soft entry into labor and delivery, because contractions means labor, and I was definitely in labor, and so they kept me since I was a little farther from the hospital. They didn't want to chance anything. That was about 9. Labor started, definitely I could feel everything. It was hurting, and I knew that I didn't want any medicine, and so I signed things that I didn't want anything. I don't know, it was kind of weird. The hospital I delivered at was weird, but that's a whole nother story because most of y'all don't live where I do, but I didn't like delivering at that hospital. But anyway, and I started to walk around because my husband suggested that was way better for my labor and for me to get things started for this little girl to come into the world. And so I started to do that. And my best advice for when you're in labor is to sit yourself into a squat. Don't do squats, but sit yourself into a squat and just stay in there and kind of pulsate a little bit. If you're familiar with ballet, do a plie and lay into a plie and just kind of stay into that. And I really feel like that really like shoves the baby down. I had a pretty quick labor at about 15-16 hours completely, and like I said, that's pretty quick for a first time labor, so that's my best trick to have your baby as quickly as possible. So around 1 a.m. they admitted me into my room and started talking to me and bothering me and blah blah blah, and they put a port in for IV even though I had said no to drugs. They said just in case of an emergency, it's just protocol for me to have it in case I needed to be rushed to a C-section or in case I changed my mind on medicine. And at this point I was definitely feeling it. I was about 5 centimeters dilated to 6 centimeters dilated, and it hurt really really bad. Contractions for me, I have heard that they do feel different for different people, but for the most part they're just excruciating, and honestly they were really painful. I was always told that contractions felt like period cramps, and that is the biggest load of baloney I've ever heard in my life, because I have literally had like the worst period cramps of like anybody on this planet, and those were not period cramps. Those were hellfire jabs into your abdomen. I felt everything under my belly button, and it felt like, I'm going to do like a motion to try to describe what it felt like. Like here's your abdomen and here's the pain. The pain pressed in and really felt like it was trying with every bit of its power to just burst through your body. And then there was a heat, like fire pain on top of that, and it burned down my legs. And then there was just another initial like gut-wrenching pain on top of that. It was just very, very painful. And the farther you go into labor, the least amount of recovery or rest you have in between your contractions. And very quickly I had no rest. About 6 centimeters I stopped having a rest, and so I was just in agony, and I was screaming, I was yelling, I was like dry crying because I had all my makeup on and I didn't want to ruin it, so I had no tears, but I was crying, and it really was awful. It was crazy. Around 3 a.m. my mother came up there to be with me, and the only people that were in the room with me were my mother, my husband, and myself. And I was screaming. I couldn't lay down. My contractions were like motion activated. If I moved, it threw me into another one, and I was just so desperate for relief that I tried to stay as still as possible. But when you're in that much agony, you just want to move around and like rip your clothes off and rip people's faces and just like hurt everybody and like scream and like start a riot. And so it's really like another internal battle. So I was on my bed holding on to the bed and pressing my body into it. I felt like the pressure like counteracted the extreme pressure pain of my body contracting and dilating, and that kind of helped for 30 minutes. It was still excruciating, but it gave me just like a little bit of relief. I got checked for dilation and I was at a 7, and right before I got checked, wait, no, this wasn't it. I was at a 7 for a little bit, and then I was having crazy contractions, so they checked me again and I was at a 9. And that was only an hour in between. So for an hour I went from about a 6.5 to a 9.5, which is really good. So I had some crazy contractions to get me there. It was crazy and painful and nuts. So it was just crazy. And then when they went to check me, when I found out that I was 9 centimeters right before, my water broke like a comedy movie broke. Like it was like it like just ricocheted right out, and it got in my socks, and it was actually really funny, and if I wasn't in so much pain I would have laughed. But after it broke, everybody was like, okay, once your water breaks it starts to hurt even worse. And I was like, no, it can't hurt even worse. I can't handle even worse. I can't even handle this. Like, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna die. And I kept like telling everybody, I was like, I need help. I need help. I just need help. Like, I can't do this. I need help. I don't know what to do. I need help. Like, every time I would have a contraction, I would daydream about when the contraction ended, because they weren't really ending at this point, that I was gonna get up and run to the nurse's table and beg for medicine. But I had already decided that I wasn't going to do medicine, so obviously I didn't do that, but I just kept thinking about that. That was like my daydream the whole time I was in labor, was like running away from my mom and my husband to just go get somebody and like beg for medicine. And so around 9.5 centimeters, they wanted me to get to 10 centimeters since this was my first baby. And I told them, like, I needed to push now. I couldn't do this any longer. I needed to push now. It was time to have the baby. And so once they were kind of like setting me up, they made me lay down, which I was super upset about because I did not want to lay down because it hurt so badly. Like I said, anytime I moved, it got thrown into a harder contraction. But my body started to push for itself, which was really scary. Like, my stomach contracted like really strongly, like, and then pushed, and I was like, ah, like I was freaking out, and everyone was like, don't push it. I was like, it's not me, it's not me. That's just what I kept saying, like, I'm not the one doing it. It's like literally like the baby or my body or something. I don't know. I always read that your body would push for you, and it really does when you're ready, I guess. But I did manually push. I just started to push for myself because I was so ready to get the baby out. And I pushed for about 15 minutes maybe. I had 3 or 4 good pushes. I was scared that I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what I was doing, but the pushes were really good. I was able to push really well. I pushed, and this is where it gets graphic, so I'm going to give one more little warning. If y'all thought that was graphic and scary, then you can't handle this next part, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes to plug your ears if you are about to have a baby. I don't want to scare you. Okay. I pushed really hard and her head came out, and I didn't know that at the time. All I knew is I felt myself ripping open, literally. I felt myself rip up, and I will never forget that feeling. I was sat up pushing. My husband had me pushed up, and I was holding my legs and I was pushing and everything, and I threw myself down and like threw myself on the bed, and I was like, ah! Like, I screamed so loud because I was so surprised. I didn't know it was gonna happen. It was a ripping pain's different than a contraction pain, so I was so scared and like shocked that I just like screamed like crazy. My mother said that it sounded like I was being murdered by Jason Voorhees, which I bet was scary to you here. And so I do feel bad for screaming crazy. But so I threw myself down, and everybody was like, no, don't stop, she's here, she's here. So I pushed one more time, even though I was feeling that ripping pain. I didn't want to push, but I heard she was here. You don't have a freaking choice, gotta get this baby out. So I pushed again, and out came my baby. And they just, it was so cool because I will never forget this image in my head of the first time I saw her. She came out and looked at me, and she went like surprised. It was hilarious. She still has that shocked look. That's just her shocked look, and that was the first look she gave me. She was like, what the hell? Like, what just happened? Who are you? Who are all of you? What happened? It was really cute and wonderful. and they gave her to me, and she like panic cried for a little bit. Now that I know her better, that was definitely her panic cry, and I soothed her really quickly, and that is her talking to me right now. Come here, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you, yes I am. I'm talking about my baby. There's my girl. That's who I'm talking about. This little girl. So she gave me a little panic cry, and then she smiled at me. And we have been inseparable ever since. I held her, and it was wonderful, but I was in a lot of pain. Yes, I was. I was in a lot of pain, and they had to start stitching me up. I got cut or ripped 3 different places, so they started to stitch me up, and they had to like shoot me with Novocaine or whatever the hell they shot me with down there, and I was shaking so bad that I was like shaking her, and she was like looking at me, and I was like, I don't want to scare her, I don't want to scare her, but I was like holding her, and she was like shaking. It was so funny, and it was crazy. It was just crazy, and I was in a lot of pain. Recovery was hell. I couldn't walk for like 8 weeks. I'm not even kidding. Like, I could walk, but I walked very, very, very slow. I had a really hard healing process, but that's honestly a whole nother story. But that is the labor and delivery story of how I delivered this beautiful baby girl. Little Halo, Haven. Here she is. Let's look at her again because she's precious. Baby is in her pajamas with her big bow. There you are. There you are. I know you're watching your cartoons, but let's show everybody your cute outfit. These are cute pajamas. Look at that. Oh, he's just so cute. He's just so cute. We got these at Target. So yeah, it was crazy. She was born at 5:48 a.m. I went into the hospital at 8 p.m. and contractions started at 3 p.m. that day. So, you know, a long labor. It really was a long time. Was that like 15-ish hours? Even though so many people have to do way longer. So I'm so sorry if you did longer. Girl, I commend you. If you're scared and you're really not good with pain, there's no shame in doing the epidural. I've heard that helps wonders, but I have heard that it does slow down labor. But if you don't feel it, then, you know, it doesn't really matter if it takes a little longer. But that's just totally up to you on what you want to do. This is your body, your labor, your story. It is all about the baby, but before she comes out, it's about you, and you need to be comfortable in what works best for you and how you're able to cope with things. It is extremely, extremely painful. I was almost like devastated with how much pain I was in. I really just had a really hard time, like, during the moment, like, coping with the fact that I was in that much pain. It really is crazy. It's completely insane. So that's my little story. Thank you so much for watching. I had a really great time filming this and reminiscing a little bit. I'll post some photos. The thumbnail is me right when I delivered her with my makeup, and I'm so fat there because I was 40 weeks pregnant. But yeah. Oh, excuse you, little girl. She just ripped her bow off her head. We are gonna go, aren't we? We're gonna go say bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for watching. Please, please, please subscribe. That would be wonderful. We want to do lots more fun videos, so it'd be wonderful if you would subscribe for us. Thank you so much. Halo and I say bye-bye. Have a wonderful day.